Well, we certainly enjoy getting your feedback on the program, and to prove to you that we actually do read your tweets, emails and Facebook messages, here are what some of you had to say on our recent stories. Now, you had a mostly favourable response to the SA Bureau of Standards' new campaign entitled Always There. Craig, however, felt that he wouldn't have known that it was an SABS ad had he not seen the logo at the end of the commercial itself. Fair point. Tabiso suggesting that the next ad should perhaps look at the consequences of not using SABS-approved products. That's a good idea. You also seem to like our interview with legendary photojournalist Peter Magubane. So did we. You had mixed emotions about the Coca-Cola and Pepsi FIFA World Cup ads that we showed you, some strongly rooting for Coke, others on the side of the Pepsi campaign. Please keep sending us your thoughts and suggestions. We're on Facebook and on Twitter 24/7. Finally, this week, a Mags on Media exclusive. The 9/11 attack on the Twin Towers shook the world. But it was not only the victims, their families and fellow Americans that were influenced by the tragedy. The ripple effect could be felt across the globe. So how do you combine the thoughts and feelings of thousands of people to relay their personal accounts of how the event touched their lives? The man who undertook this mammoth task is the founder of the New York-based design agency Local Projects, Jake Barton, who sat down with Mags on Media on our recent visit to the city.
I've been working on the 9/11 Memorial Museum for 8 years now, which is literally a fifth of my entire life and almost half of my entire career. And it's been an incredible journey. Many times it's been very, very emotionally challenging. I think that we frankly have it easier clearly than those involved in the event in a variety of ways. But even than the staff at the museum, they've endured this every day. At least I've gotten to work on other projects. The subject matter is devastating, and making your way deep inside of it, even as I have sometimes for months and for years when I was really intensely concepting the project, were very, very challenging. So we're a media strategy, design, and production firm. We make everything from iPhone applications to multi-projector installations, mostly in tandem with physical space and with architecture. So we work for cultural institutions and not-for-profits, for big brands, making different experiences that essentially bring together meaning and innovation. The first major project we did was called StoryCorps. It's a national oral histories project where people interview each other in a soundproof booth. You leave with a copy of the interview, and a copy goes to the Library of Congress. So it's essentially a way to make a large national oral histories collection one conversation at a time. And it's really a very human experience, which is what produces the warmth of the interviews. So you take that technique, which we are the interaction designer for, literally 10 years ago, we suddenly recognized there was a shape to the event of 9/11 where a third of the world knew about the event and witnessed it live. And so you have just a wealth, I mean, literally billions of people with their own 9/11 stories, and you suddenly gather those together and think about that as the museum. So it's not just a museum where you have a curator or historian telling you what 9/11 is specifically about in a definitive way. It's a platform. It's a place for people to gather, to share their own stories, to listen to other people's experiences about the day, and to really consider, most of all, what the current and ongoing and future impact is of 9/11 on the entire world. The challenge was, how do you bring people into this story, knowing that some of the visitors will be survivors, people who know everything about the event, who literally ran out of the burning building. And then on the other hand, you'll have young adults who know nothing about the event, maybe 14-year-olds or 15-year-olds who literally don't have any experience, don't remember it, weren't either alive or aware at the time. And so the way that we solved that problem was by focusing on one group's stories and capturing them and then sharing them to educate the other. So when you walk into the museum, the first exhibit you see isn't filled with a curator or a historian's voice, it's filled with the voices of other visitors telling their own stories and their experiences on that day. So you hear people from literally all around the world, from Japan and from Australia, from South Africa, from 43 different countries and 23 different languages, all collectively telling the story of the experience on that day. And once you pass through that exterior view, meaning the experience of people sort of outside of the event, you start to see witness photographs, people watching the event, and then from there you move into a chamber called Foundations Hall. huge double-height ceiling. It has 8 stories tall that has what's called the original slurry wall, which is the original wall structure that withstood the Hudson River for a full year after 9/11 itself. And from there, there's a series of exhibits that allow you to understand the memorial aspect of the event, to listen to survivors who made their way outside of the buildings, listen to those who were involved in the recovery, and then finally to tell your own story, to think both about your own experiences with 9/11, but to also reflect on 9/11's enduring and ongoing impact on the world at large. So we have an experience called Reflecting on 9/11, which allows people to record their own experiences and to consider and to think about what does the world look like now that we're in the post-9/11 world? And what are some of the ways in which 9/11 has changed the world, has changed both US history and world history, has made us either recognize or quite frankly not recognize what America has turned into since 9/11. So I think the biggest challenges for us in terms of the design is to find ways to really engage people emotionally, but without making it too devastating, too hard, too dangerous, quite frankly. New Yorkers are a tough breed, and the people who were part of the event, some of them cannot, I think, wait to see how this story is told. And some have said and certainly told me, frankly, like, I'm never going down there. Like, there's no chance, for personal reasons, I would ever go down there to see that museum. But I think from our standpoint, for both the people who are part of the event and then also wider the people who are influenced by the event, which is arguably the entire world, if the museum can find a way to honor the memory of those who were lost, but also to engage people in something of a productive, forward-looking and considered reflection on what 9/11 means today and in the future, I think that would be an incredible achievement. Especially in democracies, but just in the world in general. It's a long road from a moment of current events to history and to that historic distance. And it involves lots and lots of conversations and reconsiderations. This museum, I think, will be part of that process, just based on the fact that it was conceived a few years after 9/11 and then essentially designed and then built for a full 12 years, and then it'll launch and continue to document the post-9/11 world. And so to the extent that it can play a meaningful role in that evolution, I think it will be of value.
And that's where we are going to leave it. Until next time, goodbye to you, and as always, thank you for watching.
That moves. ENCA.com.